Now, once again, if you want to go back and take a closer look at the outcome of that, absolutely pause it and take a few minutes to study that. I hope that's helpful for you. But the point that needs to be made here is a continuation of the idea of wrapping around the forms. So what I'm drawing here is a simple sphere, and then I'm going to add a few lines to it. I'm going to add longitudinal lines and latitudinal lines, just like you would see on a graphic representation of a globe. The way that latitude and longitudinal lines would wrap around it in perspective. All right, and so I'll just kind of strengthen the overall outline of that. But when you look at that, you instantly understand, okay, he's trying to say, with lines only, he's trying to say that that is a sphere. It's not a circle, it's a sphere. It has three-dimensional shape. And so with lines only, we have graph. Now take a look at this. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but I'm going to have the lines going not with the form, not wrapping around the form, but going in the opposite direction. Remember, we are trying to create the illusion of life on a three-dimensional form. You have to pull out all of the stops to make that happen. The moment that you draw lines against the forms, it is dead. Okay? The second one has no dimensionality. I didn't help the form, I hurt the form. And go back and take a second look at that if you haven't gotten the point yet. Now this drawing I've speeded up because I want to zoom right through it and then slow down at the end to make a final point. Okay? When you wrap around the form, you create the illusion of three-dimensional life. And that's why I've emphasized that at every single step of the way. You saw that when I went against the form, when my lines did not wrap around the form, it killed the form. It had no form whatsoever. Another very common mistake made by all beginners. You've got to not just pull out the stops to wrap around the form. I like to say it, I'll probably say it more often than I realize, because as I record these things for you, there's a gap in time and I don't always remember exactly what I told you the previous time. So I love to say this is the one time in your life that you get to lie, cheat, and steal to make something happen. It's the only time in your life that doing so will have positive consequences. Okay, but you see me wrapping around the form. I'm ignoring anything that would distract from that, because the two-dimensional page has to come alive or you are sunk. So wrapping around the form, and one of the most important points to make here then is the overlaps. Notice how I have one form coming from the front, wrapping around behind. Often people put a concave shape in there like I've just showed you. Absolutely not. Concave shapes kill the form. Now I'm drawing an overlap. See that arrow I just pointed at that corner of the eye? There's an overlap there. It shows that something goes behind, something comes around front. That brings the form to life. You've got to find those. You've got to put it in. See how I've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. I think there might even be 6. And if we go down to the next, 7 of them. 7 points of overlap just on the side of the head and the neck. Okay? Coming from behind, wrapping around front, something coming from behind that, wrapping around front, and continuing. All of a sudden we have depth. Now remember that the hair also has form. And so often I see those concave shapes come into hair. Oh no, no, no. I know people have all kinds of crazy hair. It's great. I love it. You know, my hair, you'll see in some of these demos when I lean too far forward, you'll see how little hair I have these days. So I don't have the luxury of having crazy hair, but some people do. Rarely do they have concave forms. That makes it feel dead. It hurts the form. So I erased my concaves that I just put in there, and I'm showing you a redo. Wrapping around the form. See? I have a convex shape. Instead of curving into the form, concave, it's curving around the form, convex. Look at how much more volume I'm getting by making sure that happens. See the overlaps I just drew for you off to the side? Hair has volume. If anything in a hair feels like a concave, turn it into an overlap. One convex wrapping around to another convex. Okay? So I'm giving that hair form. See that line wrapping around the forehead? So many people emphasize the widow's peak. That's another place. Even when people really have that, you get that long wrapping around form first. The hairline wraps around the head. Okay, so I'm showing you there. Lose the concaves, gain the convexes. Emphasize overlaps at every turn. Let's do it again. Let's do it again with our favorite model from a different point of view to guarantee that we understand that. We've got to get you good at this. So you just saw the final example of where we're headed, so you know where we're going with this. As always, you're welcome to pause the video and take a closer look and run this at your pace. But in this case, because I've thoroughly taken you through the process a couple of times already, I've gone ahead and sped this up to double speed so that you can see the whole process again without me having to repeat myself too much. There's already going to be a lot of repetition in this class because that's what we're required to learn complicated skills. So I'll just zoom through here and you can watch the process happen from a little bit of a different angle. In this case, as you look at the inset model that I'm working from, I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing as I draw. In this case, we have him pushed a little more of a side angle from the opposite side, and we're more underneath that now. And that's a great opportunity because it gives us the opportunity to deal with underplanes. There's a plane under the chin. There's more of a plane under the nose. We're looking up into the eyebrows more. The eyes are no longer at a halfway point on the head. Those eyes are a little bit higher than that because of the perspective of looking up at our model. So you see how carefully, once again, that I am wrapping around the forms in those eyes. I just cannot tell you how critical doing that at every opportunity. You know, I once had a teacher. He could draw as fast. He could draw almost as fast. You know, I have this speeded up for you. And he could draw almost that fast just by his nature and his study. And he would do these value drawings where he would just chisel, boom, boom, boom. He would work down the face, and it felt like the forms just magically came into being. Everything just felt solid, and he would just boom, 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 work down the face. It was pretty incredible to watch. And we had such a hard time reproducing what he was able to do until we realized that he, with the side of his pencil, a chisel tip making value, tonal strokes, he was doing exactly the same idea. Just every opportunity, wrapping his stroke around the form, around the shape of those eyes, around the shape of the nose, around the shapes of the mouth. That circle that is sometimes confusing, I know, that starts at the top of the nose and wraps around the mouth, that's a muscle that starts underneath the eye and wraps all the way. It lets us, pull our chin up and down. It's an important feature on the face. It does not show up in children or possibly young women. It does more often in men, as we have looked at in the lesson. But when you're putting forms down and you're wrapping strokes around and tone, you can have a sense of dimensionality and simplicity to that whole mouth. You're not just, as we so often want to do, drawing top lips, bottom lips, corner of the mouth, and somehow that's the mouth. Oh no. It's an interconnection of big masses of anatomy. And so this teacher could do that, and it felt like magic until we got his secret. And then guess what? With enough practice, we were actually able to do the same thing to a degree, and you will too. Okay, so don't be afraid of making corrections. Don't be so committed that you're not willing to go back in. I saw that my eye was it was a little wonky. The placement was a little off, so I just erased it and moved it back into position there. You see how this head has a sense of construction to it, a sense of planes to it, a sense of dimensionality? That is the target. If we say to ourselves what our goal is, and you should always in your mind state your goal. Okay, I'm sitting down to draw. What is my outcome? Well, I want a simple, cohesive head that has clear features that illuminate the character and the look of this model, that have a sense of three-dimensional construction. All right? Make sure that is job number one in your head. And I'll just let you watch here and make a few comments just here and there as I continue to construct this head. Notice that underplane? That's the underplane of the chin. And notice how the underplane of his chin wraps around, but notice how I'm curving the part of his chin that's facing out towards us, so that I wrap that around underneath. We're looking up at him like the bottom of a cylinder. And so I have that shape at the bottom of his chin, but not where it connects to the neck. I have that line wrapping around because we're looking up at him, just like if you were looking up at the underside of his cylinder. That's another thing that helps give visual cues of our eye level. Our eye level is down at the bottom of his neck. If we were standing next to him, that's where our eyes would line up with. Okay? And again, that line is superficial, the one that comes off his nose. It wraps over top of a larger musculature. So it's very careful and it's very deliberate the way I brought that form around, that line that comes off his nose to the left there, and then I curved it back around to wrap around that musculature that curves around his mouth. Getting the back of the head in there. I'm getting overlap. Look at the overlaps once again on the far right hand side of his head. I've got one, let's see, when I get my hand out of the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then wrapping around his neck, 8, and then his neck goes down, 9. I have nine overlaps there. 9 places where one form wraps around behind and the other wraps around front. So I'm putting the finishing touches in there. Again, this was a 15, maybe a 20-minute drawing at the absolute most. And there's the finish. And let's go ahead and see how I did here. Hey, not too bad, if you don't mind me saying so, but I got the features right. I got those features accurately placed. Looks like I did a little bit better on the back of the head this time. Still a little off. Looks like I might have a tendency and the back of the neck there as well.